Hello, Internet! I hope there's better weather where you are whenever you're watching this than here, because it's gray and sad and it's raining and stuff. So the perfect time to stay inside and do awesome things. And that's what we're going to do. Last week, or the last weeks, we created this little player thingy and we made it shoot, and we even added enemies that we can shoot with our currently very, very slow moving projectiles. And oh yeah, eventually the enemy even disappears because we've completely obliterated and destroyed it. Wonderful. But what would good enemy destruction be without awarding points? We can totally do this. We can award some points and we can just print them in the debug log. So when the player wants to know how many points he had, he can open his profile folder, search for the game's log file, and then see, okay, what were my scores? But that's kind of boring. Nobody's doing this. So what we're going to do is we try to keep the score. So whenever you destroy an enemy, you get awarded some score. And we want to display it. We want to show it. We want to display, to show your current score on the screen. And we want it to be updating. So whenever you destroy an enemy, there's more score. Or when you destroy yourself, I don't know, maybe there's less score again or whatever. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a brief look at Unitiy UI. How to create our first bits of text somewhere on the screen, how we can change this text from our scripts, from our programs, and we might even add a little button just to demonstrate how buttons work. Just, I don't know, to add some score that we want to be added. I don't know, something like that. Yeah. Got my throat lubricant right there, and I already feel like I'm going to be needing it. So let's get the show on the road, and let's UI some score display. See you on the other side. Oh yeah, lubricated the throat already a bit, but might need some additional re-lubrication. But I think we can totally handle this. So again, hello and welcome. This is the thing we made the last few times. So we can move backwards, forwards, up, down, whatever we want, and we can shoot. Our projectiles are still very, very slow because we wanted to demonstrate something last time. And I think, I don't know, not sure if we make them faster, if we just leave them at that. But what we can do is we can try to shoot this little enemy stand in here. And eventually when we have caused enough damage, it will go away. And now we need to award some score. And even more important, we need to display that score somewhere. The Game Terrorist. Einen wunderschönen guten Abend. Hi. Greetings. Go out. So we stop this. So, Unitiy UI. To start having a UI, we need to create a UI. It's basically if you want to have more memory, more RAM in your computer, in your RAM expansion. So, the first thing we want is the actual display of the scores, and then maybe we want a label or anything like this. To actually just create a UI element is pretty much the same way as create the game object. Remember, when we created our game objects, we either created an empty one, or we created 3D cubes, spheres, whatever. And where is it? We're looking. Why don't I see? Okay, this is interesting. Why don't I see anything here? Okay, let me try to. Can I? Oh, because we, for some weird reason, we've been very, very far away. The camera position was, I don't know, somewhere weird. Because we want to have a good look at our scene. Not that right now we necessarily need it, but I don't know, we might need it or we might just want it. So let's see that we have a good view on our little experimental scene here. Because this is also where we'll be putting in the UI. And the UI in the editor view. Remember, the thing up here, this is the editor view, and the thing down here is the game view. So basically all of this is where I can select my things and move them around. I can't select anything here because this is where I edit my scene, where I edit my level, or wherever I'm going to place my game in. And this is the game view. This is what the camera that we are using to render the view for the player. This is what the camera sees. So this is our actual game view. So when we start adding the UI, it will, up here in the editor view, it will look a bit weird. And in a moment you will see what I mean, but it should look totally okay down here. So to create our very first UI element, just as we did with all the other things, like create an empty game object or create a 3D game object, whatever, you can see if we go down a bit further, we have a UI option. We can't only create an empty game object or 3D, 2D effects, light, audio, video, whatever. We also can create a UI object. And the first thing we want is just our score. The current score of the player, just to be there and show up to be displayed, which is a text. So of course we want to create a text UI element. And this is where the first confusion already starts. Because as you can see, we have text, and then we have text Mesh Pro. And the same goes, by the way, for buttons, drop downs, and input fields. We have one that is just what it is, and we have another one that's a Text Mesh Pro object. And usually we actually do want to use the Text Mesh Pro thing. The plain text is just an old legacy thing from way in the early days of Unity, when some clever guy was the opinion, okay, you know, this UI stuff, that stuff really sucks. I'm going to write something better. So we came up with Text Mesh Pro, which was eventually included into Unity itself, and is generally quite a bit better than the normal text thingy, because the normal text thing, it just basically just displays some text. There's no flexibility whatsoever. And Text Mesh Pro has some neat features like auto sizing. Either you can auto size the container itself, so the space your text grows larger or smaller depending on how much text you have in there, or auto size in the font size. So the letters of your text, they shrink down, they become smaller or they become larger depending on how they fit into the bounding box that you defined for your text, and all these neat features. So usually when you have those two options, when you have one just plain option and then you have the Text Mesh Pro flavored one, you usually these days want to use the Text Mesh Pro one, because that just offers you so much more flexibility and more features. Text Mesh Pro also supports HTML-like tags. It's not HTML, but it looks a lot like it. So if you want color text in different colors, you can just add tags to the text that then color specific parts. Very, very easy to use, very handy. So yeah, we want to create our Text Mesh Pro text, and you can see now it has created me this text object. Again, when I just created I don't know, a cube, it just called it cube by default. So of course the text of Text Mesh Pro element is just called text, and TMP in brackets, which does not stand for temporary, which is actually the abbreviation for Text Mesh Pro. And of course we can rename this, and since this is supposed to become our actual score display, we're going to be naming this the score. That looks wonderful. And the keen-eyed of you have already seen or spotted two other things, because again, when I created like the cube, it just put the cube here beneath as last element, and there's my cube, and that's it. And my Text Mesh Pro text element, it wasn't just added to the scene as the last element in the hierarchy, but it first added a canvas. It first added a game object called canvas that also has this canvas component. Again, remember, basically, in the end, all these objects, they are just simple game objects. And what they actually are and what they do is determined by the components that are attached onto those objects. So this is a game object. It has the canvas and canvas scalar and graphics, right? A few more things that are needed for the full UI canvas. So that's what makes this object a canvas. And it first created this, and then it put our text element as a child of the canvas. So in usually like the prefix text element with txt underscore, you can tell what is without clicking on it. Yeah, that's actually quite good practice. I mean, again, this is just for demonstration purposes. We're not doing best practices or even good practices. This is just to demonstrate how things work. But this is a very good point. In our production projects, like the actual projects we work on, we have a naming scheme for pretty much everything. Not only for like how methods or variables or properties are named, but also for asset files and for objects in the scene. And yeah, it's actually a very, very, very good idea to prefix these things. Like you could, like you could do something like this, and then you immediately know, okay, this is a text field. That's quite a good idea. And again, we actually do this ourselves in our production projects, that the games we're actually working on. So yeah, this is a very good idea, and good that you mentioned that, because well, I already said it's a good idea, so it sounds a bit repetitive, but yeah. Yeah, but this is just for to demonstrate stuff. So yeah, this is everything. Especially I've mentioned this quite a few times already. When we're in the code, you see there's these yellow squiggly lines. This is not this code, and everything we're doing here does not adhere to best practices. It's sometimes not even good practice. It's just to demonstrate the basic functionality. We might maybe eventually end up doing more advanced sessions. I have a few ideas on stuff that go a bit beyond what you usually do, like even stuff like multi-threading or things like that, where we should stick to better practices. So I've said this quite some often the last few sessions, like these yellow squiggly lines that my IDE presents me here, that basically tell me this is not cool. You shouldn't do it like this. You actually should get rid of all of them. So in well-written code, you don't see a single one of these yellow squiggly lines. Sometimes you have a few of the green ones, because the green ones just tell you, yeah, I would suggest you a different way of doing this, but if you keep doing it as you currently are, it's also fine. So these are kind of personal preference, but once they become getting yellow, you should definitely get rid of them. And we did this here. I've said this, I think, last time already. And the Dargo, what I haven't said is hello to you yet. So let me do this. Hi there. Thanks for joining. We actually did it up here because when we did this piece of code, we actually got the very same yellow squiggly lines as on these two lines. So we actually took care of this to demonstrate how it's better to do it. So yeah, again, take all the code and all the samples with a grain of salt. It's just to demonstrate the general idea behind it. And best practice is a whole nother topic on its own. You can literally spend years learning and absorbing best practices, and there's still stuff you have missed. At least that's my experience. So we got our text element. This currently just says new text, and you can see it already down here, down there. It says new text. Here's our, you can't see because there's this JetBrains logo. Can I maximize this? And then it's there. Okay, this is, and you already see the first problem. Now the text is here. And when I minimize this or unmaximize this again, you can see the text is now here. Excuse me, 1 second. Dry throat, I tell you. The text is down here in the corner. So it doesn't fit to whatever the current viewport is. But that is something we can fix. This is one of the reasons why we have the canvas. And if we look here, there, and this is what I meant just a few moments ago when I said, in the editor view, this will look super weird. Because look at this. This is our scene. This is what we've built. This is our player object, and here's the two enemies. And then we have this huge thing that looks like we're in a cinema or whatever. That shows us our UI, and I have no idea why Unity does it, because this is not how it's displayed. Because how it's actually displayed, you can see down here. Like here, down here is the new text, or if I maximize this, now it's here, and it even looks smaller. But this might be an illusion. It might be still the same size. It's just somewhere else, and the other stuff got bigger, so this looks smaller. So yeah, it's in the UI in the editor view is kind of weird to the level it's almost useless, because you have no idea where the stuff is actually displayed. You have to have your game view to actually see where that stuff is put and how it's rendered and how it looks like. Yeah, so this is a bit confusing, and if you're totally confused by this and if you don't understand it, don't mind, nobody does. Maybe not even the people who wrote this. So this is our text element, and I can already say, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and oh, look at that. Yeah, this yeah, this is Unity. I hate to hate on Unity, but I'm not doing much. I just started Unity literally a minute before I went live with this stream. I just started Unity, and all I did was load the project, and then together with you, I added this element, and look at all the null pointer exceptions. The object of type dock area has been destroyed. Whatever dock area is. This is one of the cases where you just need to restart Unity, which we'll be doing in a second. But yeah, every time I type in here, I get more errors. So let's say, I don't know, let's put 5 placeholders in here. 2, 3, 4, 5, because let's say our score is at maximum 5 digits or whatever. And then let me save everything and just restart Unity, which usually gets rid of all of those nasty null pointer exception. This is a classic Unity problem. Unity has this problem since, I don't know, a couple of years, and they have no intention of ever fixing it. This is something we just have to live with. So let me see what happens if I now see. And now I can type in here fine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or I can even type like an 8 and a 3 and a 7, and I don't get any errors. So if you should get a crap load of neon red error thingies and null pointer exceptions and whatever, just restart Unity, and the chance Wow, even different digit. Yeah. This is amazing. In more important, without getting any more errors. So it's not that after the restart, I can type in the zeros. I can even type in a 1. And I'm not getting any more errors. So yeah, the point being, should, just like we had it, if you should start getting all these weird errors in an insane amount, just restart Unity. That actually usually fixes it. Maybe they actually eventually fix the actual problem, but well, not today. So here we got our text object with the placeholder, and you can see it's quite large for all those few zeros in there. I'm not sure how well these things work on UI elements. Oh yeah, they do work. Okay, this is fine. This is good. They actually do work. Let's make this a bit bigger. So this is fine. And also I want my score to be right aligned, because if we have like 10 points, let's zoom in a bit. If we have like 10 points, it looks like this. And if we have 90 points, it starts looking like this. And once we get more points and we have like 120 points, the number gets larger and grows to the right. And I kind of don't like this. I want this to be right aligned. So what I basically want is I want my 90 points to look like this, and my 120 points like this, which is super easy. Just type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our 5 placeholder zeros here. And since this is a text field, and most of you know text from like in Word or something, where you can do stuff like actually set the alignment. And of course you can do this here as well. We got the alignment, we just set this to right aligned, and see, now I have 5 points, and I have 90 points, and I got my 120 points. And it's all neat and tidy. The units are always at the same point. The tenths are always at the same point. The hundreds are always at the same point. And the number then grows up to the left. This is how I like it. Basically, you can do it however you want. I mean, it's your project. And there's quite more options. Most of them are quite self-explanatory. Like if you have multiple fonts, I think I only have. Oh no, we do have. Oh, look at that. We have Banger. What's Banger's SDF? How does that look? Oh, that looks sweet. Or Anton. That looks cool. So yeah. You also can choose several fonts. Of course, you cannot just choose your TrueType fonts you have installed in your Windows. These are special font assets that need to be installed for TextMesh Pro to actually be able to use them. So for now, let's use this Bangers SDF. That looks good. That looks funny. This is a nice score. We might even just be able to make this, I don't know, 40. Make this bigger. I mean, it's 42. 42 is always, 42 is always the right number, the right amount of size. Let me just quickly try to tame this cable. Looks like the comic sans of Unity might be the lazy brown fox, or what was this weird sentence? Yeah, it doesn't quite look like Comic Sans, but it goes into the general direction. This might be the reason why I like this font, why I said, okay, we're going to be using this. Because honestly, Comic Sans is the best font ever. Comic Sans is just the nicest and bestest font there is. The only problem is, yes, it's not suited to write your job application with. And that is the reason why people started disliking Comic Sans so much, because people was like, oh, this looks nice, I'm going to be writing my job application with this. Nope. Nope, that actually is not a good idea. Hey, Void, you have doubts about Comic Sans being the best forever. Really? Well, maybe it's not the best forever, but it's one of the nicest. It's definitely, and I say this without kidding you, I mean this totally seriously. It's one of my most favorite fonts. I like it. It's just maybe because I like comics. I mean, and maybe because I'm not sure. We're going a bit off topic, so I'm gonna be moving back on topic in a second. But just allow me this one off topic comment. There's an old is I put it nicely. It's almost ancient. There's a chat program called Comic Chat, and Comic Chat used Comic Sans. I always like to say this program is the reason why Comic Sans was invented in the first place. Very nice and lovely program. Makes your chat into comic strips. So you have your normal IRC chat, but it's displayed in the form of comic strips with characters and speech bubbles. It's quite nice. So I like it. So, Monogenesis. Hi there. Just wanted to tell me how much you love my... Oh, thank you. Thank you for the nice words. Very much appreciated. I don't have time for live streams. You watch all the videos once they are on YouTube. Oh, that's nice. And this is, well, cool. This is the reason why they are put on YouTube. So they are there. Whenever you have the time, whenever you feel like it, you can watch them. But thanks for the feedback. Very much appreciated. Thank you. So there's the best font ever. Okay, now you should shut up. Okay, let me see. What is that? How does that look like? Yeah, that's... I can't really disagree. This one bears history. This font, it bears a lot of history, and yes, I totally get your point. Yup. Nice. Okay. Oh, it tells me the chat rules. Oh, this is funny. It tells me that just because I accidentally clicked into the send a message field. Anyways, but this is why I love having you guys here with me. And this is honestly, I gotta admit, this is why the recordings of these streams are not always the best YouTube material, because, well, we talk and sometimes we talk off topic, but this is why I enjoy this so much, having you guys with me. These small deviations from what we're actually supposed to talk about. Anyways, we got our Text Mesh Pro thingy, and as you can see, you can make it bold, italics, underscored. What's that? Strike through it. You can make it all lowercase, all uppercase. You can make it, what's that? Small caps, whatever that is. I don't know. You have a lot of checkboxes and a lot of things where you can put numbers in, and even more different options you can set. Stuff like the color. So yeah, you can really make the text pretty much look like how you want it. You can't do fancy effects, like you can't emboss it, you can't make it sparkly or stuff. You need to do shaders with that, but shader coding is something I need to get my feet wet myself at first. But I think eventually we're gonna be ending up having at least 1 or 2 tutorial sessions in regards to shader coding. But right now I know too little about shader coding, so I have to work myself into there, which I definitely want to, because shader toy and stuff is just more fun when you actually know how to use it. So anyways, we got our text thingy, and we still haven't really talked about the canvas. And the canvas is something very important, because the canvas actually takes care about all the rendering. This text element by itself, when I drag it out of the canvas, let me drag it out of here. It still exists. It's still there, but it's nowhere to be seen. It's not only invisible, and it's just not rendered, because the text element itself doesn't do the rendering. The text element itself just provides the information what's supposed to be shown on screen. And one of the things the canvas does is that everything that's a child, everything that's in the hierarchy are childed beneath the canvas takes care about actually rendering it on screen. So when I now drag my score thingy back into the canvas, you see now it starts appearing again because the canvas knows, okay, I have this as a child, I need to render this, and then it checks everything and gets told stuff, and then it knows, oh, there's glow. Glow's nice. We should try out the glow eventually. And then it knows how to render this. And this is already one of this is quite an important thing that you encounter when you do more with UI. And let me just tell you up front, why is there another? What's this? I'm currently confused by this thing. Why this is there? I mean, we made it smaller. Well, let's not be confused by stuff that, well, it works. It works just like we want it to. So, but I think, oh wait, I might have scaled the wrong thing. Wait a second. I might have just scaled the wrong thing. Yeah, I wanted to scale those. And I have no idea what that now is, but, oh, this is, no, it's not. No, anyways. Yeah, UI can be weird, and you will have a lot of question marks over your head when working with it, but that unfortunately is just how it is. So the canvas actually takes care about rendering all these things. That also means there's one question that's coming up quite early when you start working with UI. Can I have more than one canvas? Is it bad? Do they conflict when I have more than one canvas? And the answer to this is actually you should have more than one canvas. Because, as said, the canvas is responsible for actually rendering all the UI elements that are childed beneath the canvas. So, and it even doesn't matter how far down. So we could create another, let's just do this. We could create another Text Mesh Pro object, and this just says current score. And we again take our fancy font. It was the bangers one, right? Yes, nice. So we make this the same font size as the score, or otherwise it looks weird. Let's put a column behind that. And let's name this score label. And what I can do now is I can also drag my score UI, my score text element as a child of the score label. Then I can actually move these things around so they look a bit more sensible, like so. I think that's looking good. That's looking okay. So because when I now move the score label, I also move the score itself, because we know it's the same behavior when we childed all the other things for our player. But no matter how far down the hierarchy it is, everything that's below the canvas, no matter how many levels down, it's a child. It's still somewhere at some point it's a child of the canvas. So the canvas takes care about rendering everything that is in any level a child of this canvas object. But, and this is a drawback of the canvas, whenever any of these elements is changed, like later on when our score changes, like we hit the enemy, we get 100 points, and our score changes, the canvas redraws everything inside it. So even if we only, let's say we have, I don't know, we have a huge UI, we have player controls and I don't know, atmospheric conditions, temperature, speed, number of projectiles. We have a huge UI. And it's all in one canvas. Just because we change the score, all of these UI elements will be redrawn. And at first glance, you might think, yeah, that's cool. So they are always up to date and current, look nice. Yeah, but redrawing them takes time. So the more UI elements you have that are redrawn just because you changed one of them, the worse your performance, your overall performance of your game will be. Because for every single change, the whole canvas, every single element, UI element inside the canvas needs to be redrawn, because that's unfortunately just how the canvas works. And this is the reason why you actually should have multiple canvases, given that is the proper plural of canvas. So you should have more of these things, and you should sensibly group them. Like when you have a player UI that, I don't know, tells you remaining fuel, remaining health points, stuff like that. Put that in one canvas. If you have the score display, put that in a separate canvas. If you have, I don't know, some fancy, nice stuff on the border that you want to UI-wise show or do whatever with, put that in a separate canvas. So whenever you update one of the elements, not everything has to be redrawn, but only the things that are actually part of that canvas. So in this case, it would even be better to make like a static canvas. And like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's actually do this. Can I just add a canvas here? Yeah, I can. And let's just call this canvas static stuff. And let's call this canvas changing stuff. I don't know, whatever. So, is it better to nest the canvases under one main canvas? No, because then you got the same problem. If you nest them like this, you still have the situation that once one thing is changed, this canvas up here thinks, I need to draw everything else. So you usually do not want to nest the canvases itself. You want to have them side by side, like this. No, not like this. Wait, more like, yeah, this is good. More like this. But yet I would like the static thing on top, which worked. Okay. And what I can do now is I can drag my actual score. I can change this into this one. So now I have two canvases. And you can see my display is still completely fine. But whenever I change my actual score, only this score UI element has to be redrawn and not the score label. In this very simple case, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is one more text label. This won't cost us any performance. But just consider this being a bigger UI. And now when I change the score, only my UI element or only the UI elements inside the changing stuff canvas have to be redrawn, and static stuff like my label that doesn't really need to be updated because it just stays static. This one doesn't need to be redrawn. This is drawn once or whenever actually needed to be displayed, but it's not recalculated whenever I change the score. Yeah, I think that should make it clear. If not, just keep asking. Can the text use some resource manager for multi-language support? Not out of the box. Not out of the box. The Text Mesh Pro is just a simple static text. well, static in the sense it doesn't by itself change the text or do stuff with it. Of course, you can change it at runtime via code, which we are going to do today. But it doesn't support stuff for like localization out of the box. This is something you either have to code yourself or get some pre-made asset. In another project that we did where we have localized stuff in Unity, I made a small component that actually you give the component. Unfortunately, I can't show you yet because it's not released yet, so I can't show you the actual thing. But I might be able to, maybe for next week, I might be able to copy the component into this project and then show you. But I made a component that I just called translated text. That in addition to the Text Mesh Pro thing, I drag my component in on here and I just give it an ID. And what my component then does is, based on the ID and based on the active language, it gets from the translator system that we've written, it gets the current phrase in the current language for this text, and then it just grabs the Text Mesh Pro component and replaces the text with whatever the translated text is. So it's quite easy to do this yourself in code. Again, for next week, I see that for next week, I copy the component from the project into this one, so I can actually show you. But the Text Mesh Pro UI element by itself does not support any facilities for localization or stuff. Yeah, so we got that covered with different canvases. So it's not only okay to have multiple of them, it's also it's actually rather good to have several of them. So now the next problem, let's tackle this. You see currently the score is here. Or let's already move this. Let's move this up there. I mean, of course, now I don't have the childing anymore. But yeah, well, I mean, this is for demonstration purpose. So it's all good. It's all good, man. Yeah. Can I move this? Like, no, I can't. Too bad. So I have to see that I stay level with that. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks okay. So now you can see in my game view, I got my current score up here. And when I now maximize this, I got my current score in the middle of this screen. And it didn't get bigger. I mean, everything got bigger because, well, the viewport got bigger. So everything grew with it. But my text, it even looks smaller. But this is just an illusion. It's still the same size, and that's the problem. It didn't grow bigger, but everything else got bigger. This one didn't. It didn't even really change its position. It's supposed to be up here in the corner and not somewhere in the middle of the screen. But that, fortunately, is just a configuration setting on the canvas, because on the canvas, we have a few quite important settings, like we have the render mode, which currently is in screen space overlay, and I'm actually not sure if that is, no, that's perfectly okay. We don't need to change this, but oh yeah, this is the one we need to change. See, we have a canvas scaler, and there's the UI scale mode, which currently is constant pixel size, which means these things, our UI elements, are always the same size and the same position. So if I maximize this, it doesn't move. The field, our viewport gets bigger, but this thing just relative to the middle, it stays where it was, and also it doesn't grow with it. So because if we have a larger viewport, like all the other objects, we expect it to grow with it. So instead of constant pixel size, we can say scale with screen size. And that is pretty much exactly what we want, because if I now maximize this, you can see my text current score also got bigger when the viewport got bigger, and it also kept its relative position. It kept sticking in the corner here. The actual count didn't, because we haven't because this is a different it's a separate canvas. We haven't set this yet, but we are going to. Because there's one more quite neat thing. When you set it to scale with screen size, you can give it a reference resolution. And this means like all the sizes and everything how you design your own UI elements, you design them based on the resolution you're setting here. So the canvas scaler then knows what the actual proper size for the actual display then is. So let's just say 1920 by 1080, which gives us a quite small current score. So because I'm too lazy, I do not want to change the font size. I just changed my reference resolution to 1280 by 720. And you can see it's already bigger. It's a different position. And my cable, again, is going wild here. Let me tame this. Yeah, some things never change. Yeah, I think this is pretty okay. You can also give it more weight if it should match more to the width or the height, depending on maybe you're doing a mobile thing that's in portrait mode or something. There's a lot of things, a lot of settings that you can use to tweak how the UI is actually displayed or rendered. If you really want to dive deep into this, what they means, the documentation is your best friend, because they are documented enough to get you started on understanding them. So now I just need to move my score label back up here again, and maybe make it. Let's see in full screen if we should make it bigger. Let's do the same to our changing stuff canvas. So let's set it to scale with screen size, and our reference resolution was 1280 by 720. Move this. So let me see that I get this level with this text so it doesn't look too distorted. That's okay. So that's fine. So you can see now I got my current score text and the display up here in the corner. And when I now change the size, like I maximize this, it scales with my viewport. It properly scales like all these objects. Larger screen, larger image. Also my UI elements, they scale with it. And they actually, the position scales also with it. So it stays exactly where it is, no matter if I have a small display or a large display. And again, if this is a behavior you don't want, you can set this to whatever suits your needs. In this case, this is actually how we want it. So yeah, this is looking pretty neat already. We got our display current score. Here's our placeholder, so just we know how big our numbers maybe can get. And of course, you can also use images. I mean, this is just it's just sitting there, and maybe if you have a white background, you can't see it because white on white, white on white gives you water, and you know what happens then when stuff becomes blue. Yeah, I've just watched this series, so bear with me and my puny little references and puns. So what you can also do is you can use images in your UI. Since I don't have a fancy image I can use, I will just use a flat color, but it's still when we say, okay, we want to add a new UI element and we want to add an image. And here we don't have to choose between image or text mesh pro image because we just got the image. And since I don't have a fancy image, I'm just going to be choosing a color like, let's say black, and also make this half transparent. Where is, oh yeah, here's the alpha. Let's set the alpha to 128. That's always a good value. And then move this up here and scale this properly so it looks kind of nice. And you will immediately notice something. Funnily, you notice more in the editor view than you do in the play view, and I'm not sure if that actually. Let me just hit play. Yeah, no, it actually okay. It stays okay in the play view. But you notice when, and you can see this quite nicely because we have this changing stuff canvas that's on top of the other one. You can see that when I edit the image, it also is on top of my text current score, because that's another thing. The order in which the elements are inside the canvas is quite important. The order of my game objects, my enemies, and my player, it really doesn't matter. They are where they are, and that's it. But since the canvas is actually like, if you're a painter, it's actually like a canvas. And if you first apply the white color and then you apply the blue color, well, you got a blue streak on your canvas. So it's the very same with this canvas. So the order in which these UI elements appear is quite important because they are drawn on top of each other in the order they appear in this canvas. So first we get the label, and then we get the brush, make it full of black color, and smear it all over our just written label. We actually want it the other way around. We first want the black color as a base, and then we want to write our text on it. So all we have to do is to change the order. So first have the image, then have the label, and you can see, ta-da, we're happy. At least we're happy in the editor view. We're not happy in the game view yet. When I hit run again and wait till it actually runs, we can still see that there's still the black from this image. It's still covering our text here. So let's try. I'm actually not sure if that helps, but let's try canvas order. And that does not help. Okay, that is. See, and that is the weird behaviors of the Unity UI. Because now this black image, it's always on top of our score display, which is totally not what I want. And I also do not want it to be like that. I want it to be, yeah, like, come on, like so. Okay, I think we're gonna be doing the hacky solution for this, because this is something where you usually would fire up Google, end up on Stack Overflow, and eventually find the answer to why this is and what to do against it. Maybe it's canvas sort order thing. Well, I did try. Oh, you mean this one? Oh, wait a second. Let me try. Oh yeah, look at that. See? Ha! Thanks, Ian. Yes, absolutely. Look at that. See? Or if you're doing this on a live stream, you do not have to Google and end up on Stack Overflow, because you have always someone in the chat who just knows the answer, or at least has the right idea that then ends up in being the answer. Yeah, you got a sort order. Yeah, which kind of sorts the canvases, like in which order they are sorted. I think lowest number first. So this one is 0, so it first draws the the black image, and I just set this to 1, which seemed to have placed this on top of the other. Nice. See? Problem solved. And now we have a nice scoring display. Okay, game's running. And again, this black background, it could be a super fancy image. You can make your UI looking really nice. I mean, there's games with really great UI. So there we have it. This is the basic thing. Now we do have our score display. The next thing we need to do is to actually, well, count the scores and actually have this score thingy display the proper score. But that's easy. That's pretty much all code we have done so far. But let's save this just in case. So for the score counting and everything, let's create another script, and we name this. This is our score manager. Yes, because why not? I just decided we're gonna be calling it our score manager. Here it is. Do we need the start function? Yes, we do. Null pointer, method save not. Oh, that will be horrible. I mean, imagine working on your project for a long time, and then you go like, okay, I'm gonna be lunch and I'm gonna be save this, and then it tells you, yeah, null pointer. The save function is broken. Good luck with that. Oh, that's that's the stuff nightmares are made of. So yeah, we do not need the update function, I think, but we will need the start function. So just leave it here. And we create a private integer number that is current score. And this is why we want a start function, because this is the way I do it. Of course, what you can do is, which is perfectly legit, and I think even my IDE might suggest this, you could do something like this. Well, you could say, okay, this is the current score, and by default it's 0. I like to just define them without giving them any value there, and then in my start method, I just tell it, look, current score, we set it to 0, and everything is fine. Another thing we need is we need to be able to update. Oh, here we need to be able to update this score field, and ideally we just have a reference to this. Of course, we can do find game object, get component, all the yada. But that costs performance, and performance is valuable. So we create a serialized field like we've done many times before so far. And of course it's private because they always are. And one thing we could do, but there's a neater way. We could just say, okay, game object, and this is our score text. Yeah, and since this is a serialized field, it doesn't have the underscore, and we actually do initialize this with null just to get rid of the warning, because Unity likes to give us warnings if serialized fields don't have an explicitly defined thingy here. And another thing we need is, we do need, because since we want to edit the text, we want to change this text, those zeros. So we don't only need the game object, because even though in the end this is a UI element, at the bottom of its heart, it's a game object with just the right components slapped onto it. And one of those components is the TextMesh Pro component. So what we actually want is, we do not really want the game object. We want the TextMesh Pro component. that's attached onto this game object, because we want then to change the text of this Text Mesh Pro component. So one thing we could do is, first of all, we create a private field. And here's another weird thing that causes a lot of confusion, because here it says Text Mesh Pro, text UI, wonderful. And you can see we have in our player cube, we have our movement component, and that thing is actually called movement component. So we have movement component script up here. So these component names are usually the names of the classes that are behind those components. And Text Mesh Pro thought, no, that's too easy. Let's make things more interesting. Because you would think that if you want to get the Text Mesh Pro component of this game object, and it's actually called Text Mesh Pro, you can see it, it's right there. You could say, yeah, look, I can just Text Mesh Pro, and then I can score text, whatever. Or score text TMP component, whatever. And it even works. I mean, the IDE tells me, yeah, Text Mesh Pro is perfectly fine. And when we then, because this is one way we could do it. We have the reference to the game object. So in our serialize field, we can drag, no, I want to go here. We can drag the score game object. We can drag this into the inspector to populate this serialize field with a reference to this game object. And what we can then do is we can say our, and this is not a serialized field, so this does have the underscore. So our score TMP component, okay, uppercase M. I'm going to be deleting this anyways. This is just an example because we're doing this way neater. I'm just showing you that this is one way you could do. So the component we have in score text, we have a reference to the game object, to this one, to the score object. And what we can do on the game object is we can do a, what's it called? Get component. And we could say we want the Text Mesh Pro component, and be done with it. and then we can actually use this. Then we can make a private void update score display. And in our update score display, we could just say, okay, we have the Text Mesh Pro component up there. This is where we store the component, and then we access the text property, because this is actually where this text is stored in. It's the text property. And then we just set this to the current score, which doesn't work because our current score is an integer and text is a string. So thanks for the toString method. And there we go. So this looks good and well. And the get component, this is one of the things I wanted to show you. What you can do is you can, in your serialize field, you can get the reference to the game object, and then you can use the get component method on the game object to actually get the Text Mesh Pro component, and then you can set the text property of this component to finally set the text. Also, we need to call update score display, or otherwise nothing will be displayed. This is good and fine. Only that this will return a null. Because it's not Text Mesh Pro. It's Text Mesh Pro UGUI. Don't ask me why. I have no clue. I have no idea. But Text Mesh Pro thought, nah, just getting the Text Mesh Pro Way too easy. We want to make things more interesting. So they actually call the Text Mesh Pro UGUI. I think I can guess what the UI stands for, what the UG stands for. I've no clue. I have no idea. So this actually works. You want to get the Text Mesh Pro UGUI component. And now you got this thing. Now you got this thing. And now you can still set the text component because then you're setting the actual text. So this is something you could do. But it works quite neater because instead of getting a reference to the game object and then using get component to get the component, we can also just create a serialized field that will hold a reference to the text mesh UI component that we will then use for our score text. And the interesting thing is, you might ask yourself, okay, how do I get the component from one game object dragged into the serialized field of another object? Because when I have this object, wait, did we have it? Yeah, let's save this and let's already attach our score manager to, I don't know, let's just put it onto the canvas changing stuff. Or should we create? Yeah, let's just drop it on that. It's okay. But let's move it up a bit so we have easier access to our own component. Yeah, that looks good. So, see now here, and let me grab that magnification thingy. We have what? Okay, we're still live. Okay, this is the horrible sound that sometimes comes when yeah, but it might have just been we're still live. Okay, yeah. Sorry, this is the horrible sound that also comes when Discord disconnects. OBS, when OBS disconnects. But I can still see myself in the preview, so we should still be good. Fine. All right. So we have the score text, our score text serialized field here that wants stream is still up. Great. Thanks for the feedback. I think it might just be a notification that one of my lights here has a new firmware, because we are now living in a day and age where even your light source has a firmware. It might have just been that, because the notification is technically the same. So okay. So in this our score text, it wants a reference to a Text Mesh Pro UGUI component. New color has just been installed. Oh, that'll be nice. That would be lovely if they'd be RGB. Unfortunately, you can only set the color temperature. But this isn't air quoted only because this is actually one of the reasons why I got these things, to be able to set the color temperature, because that's very, very important for me at least. So yeah, maybe the color temperature range has expanded. I don't know. I should actually, one day I should install the new firmware to find out what happened. So where was I? All right. The thing is, when I have the canvas changing stuff object selected, and I have my serialized field here, and I now want to drag in the reference to the component from the other object. To get at the component of the other object, I have to click on the object, and gone is my inspector view of this one, so I can't drag this into there. Fortunately, it's way more easy. It's way more easy. Here's our serialized field, score text. And the score object is the object that has the component on it we want to have a reference to. So all we have to do is we just drag the game object, the whole game object, onto our serialized field and let go. And Unity sees that, wait, you don't want a reference to a game object, you want a reference to a component. Oh, but look, the game object you dragged onto this field, it does have the component you want a reference to. And voila, pretty wonderful. Now it tells us in our score text serialized field, we have a reference to from the score game object. This is this one. From the object, the score, we have the TextMesh Pro component. So it's that easy. It actually took me a while to notice this works. So instead of creating a serialized field with a game object and then using get component, you just can say, okay, I want a reference to the component in this serialized field, and then you just drag the object of which you want a reference to its component onto your serialized field, and Unity knows, all right, from that object you want this component. Wonderful. This is the reference I put you into your serialized field. Take it and use it. It's that easy. And it actually took me a while to notice this works, because for quite a while I've done it the way I previously showed you. I just dragged a reference to the game object in here and then used get component by myself, which you shouldn't do because performance, you should avoid it. And this is a very, very neat way to just avoid it, because Unity knows the instance of this reference. It doesn't of this component. It doesn't really have to get it. It just can give you a reference to it here. And yeah, it's just wonderful. It's one of the things that work really, really neat and really nice. So what we should get already. So let's try just to test this out. Let's put a 42 in here. Because we already have our score manager component attached to our changing stuff canvas. And we've given it a reference to the text mesh component on this thing. So, and since we set the current score to 42 and then we update the score display, when I now run the game, when I now start it, these placeholder zeros should become a 42. Wonderful, which they do. So that means our code that tries to access the actual text display of this UI element, it works. And that's basically it. All we have to do now is some default random code that we've done quite some times already in the past. So we just do it. We set this to 0. The starting score is 0. And then we add a public method because we want this to be called from the outside. We just call this add score. And it takes an integer, which is the score to add. And all we do is we add up to our current score the score to add, update the score display, and be done. So all we now have to do is to call this method. So how do we do this? Or more important, where do we do this? Look at this. We have our health component. And I think oh yes, look at this. In our health component, we're checking when we're getting damage, we're checking if the damage reached 0 or below to then destroy the game object. So what we can do here is add another serialized field. And we want a reference to our score manager. Yes, we want a reference to our score manager, because when we're destroyed, we want to call the add score method on the score manager. But we have to know, how many score gets awarded when we score. So we just add yet another serialized field. And we call this is an integer, by the way. And we call it score on destroy. So this is basically the score that gets awarded to the player when this object is destroyed. And now all we have to do is, since this is written wrong, this is lowercase s, thank you. Now we got, once we've set it, we got a reference to our score manager, and we know the score that is supposed to be awarded when the object this component is currently running on gets destroyed. So just before we actually destroy our game object, we can say score manager. And since we made it public, we should see our add score. Look at that. We just give it whatever score has been entered up there as score to destroy. Save this. Let's Unity compile. And once it's done compiling, we should on our enemy, we should, oh yeah, look at that. Oh, I was afraid of that. Because our enemies, but they're in the scene. That's not a problem. Our enemies are in the scene because our enemies are prefabs. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about prefabs, what prefabs are, why prefabs are, and how prefabs are made. And I don't think I can drag a reference from something that's in the scene here into the I don't think that'll work. No, it doesn't. Okay, but that's not a problem because these things are... Okay, what did I just do? I did do something stupid I didn't want to. Okay, this undid it. Wonderful. But these are already in the scene. So I can just... You see, we have the score manager. What we can do is we can, on the enemy prefab, we can say each enemy you destroy yields you 100 points. That's something we can do. And then we can go to our instances of the prefab in the scene and we can drag the score manager reference in there again. We have our score manager as component on the canvas changing stuff game object. And since we can just drag the object holding the component we want a reference to onto our serialized field, this should just work if I drag the canvas changing stuff onto here. Wonderful. You see, the score manager is now from the canvas changing stuff object, the score manager component. Do this with enemy number 2 as well. So he also has a reference to... This is actually something that gets quite a tiny little bit more complicated when you actually spawn these things, because we can't set the score manager reference in the prefab because the score manager is a component that's already in the scene, that's already instantiated. So we can't set this in the prefab directly. So you would need to implement something. If you spawn these, I mean, right now it's very easy because the enemies, we just drag them. And you know what? Just for the fun of it, let's drag another enemy in the scene. Let's put it here. Let's call it enemy 3. And we make it a bit bigger and therefore it yields more points. Where's the enemy? I want to move the... Can I move the... Why can't... oh, because I'm looking at the... I'm looking at the game view, not the edit view. Cool. So there it's at 3. How about 5? Yeah, that's a bit high up. Let's say 4.5 because I want to make it bigger. and then we scale this thing up by a factor of 2. So this is a huge enemy, and because this is a huge enemy, it also gives you 250 points, and also needs the reference. So with these enemies, it's quite easy. We can just drag the reference onto there for each instance. We just have to do it for each instance, which is a bit inconvenient, but well, this is how it works. If you have something like an enemy spawner, if you spawn these prefabs programmatically, like we do with our projectiles. Oh, also this enemy needs to have way more health points. Let's double this. Let's double this. And it also gives you 2,000 points of damage when you fly into it. So if you have a piece of code where you spawn the enemies, you should see that this piece of code already has the reference to this component. And then when you spawn the enemy, you need to implement some mechanic or just like a public method or something that you can set the reference after you've spawned, after you've instantiated the prefab. You can call a function on your game object that basically sets the reference into this, so you don't have to do this get, because you really should try to avoid get component as much as possible, because get component is one of the most expensive things you can do in your code, and expensive as in it costs you a lot of performance. So the more get components you have, the more lags or the worse the performance in your game might end up being. So for us now, this isn't an issue because we just drag the reference in there when we need it, and we're happy with that. Also, let me see if save does not give me a null point. No, it's not. Okay, the save function is still available. It's not been destroyed. Wonderful. So, yeah, this should already work because our enemies have a reference to our score manager for the health component, and our health component, if I did not forget to save, already calls the add score from the score manager. So yeah, this should already work. Let's put this to maximize on play. Let's run it. So there we go. Fly around and score 0. Wonderful. Shoot the first enemy with our super slow projectiles. And we got 100 points. Look at that. Nice. Shoot the next. No, shoot the big one. Here, shoot the big one. This one is meaty. He needs quite a lot of. Okay, I forgot to do something. Okay, looks like I forgot to do something because I'm not damaging him. My projectiles are just flying straight through him. Maybe I didn't set. Oh, object reference not set to. Object reference not set to instance of an object. What am I missing? What am I missing? I'm missing something. I'm missing something when I'm hitting this enemy. Why and what? Let's see where this problem comes to be inside the health. Oh! The score display doesn't. But I did. What? But I did. I mean, look at that. I mean, it worked for the. Let's check. Let's check the other one. Let's check this one. Okay, that works. Gives us 100 points. Let's check this one. It works as well. Gives us 200 points. And only this one, when I demaximize this. Where's my... Oh, here's my shooting. Okay, that is interesting. Why are we... And we got some more. Wait a second. Did I forget to set something? I haven't done anything. I mean, look, I'm not missing anything. Damage the player, damage the projectile, damage the enemy. There is the reference to the score manager. I am confused. I am a little bit confused. This is why this is a live stream and not a YouTube video. Because things can go wrong. And there's things I might not be able to understand. Okay, these might actually operate. These might actually be because we destroyed it. Because we hit it multiple times. This might be a timing issue. The interesting thing is just why this thing just doesn't die and gives us. Huh. Okay. This would be the time where you start debugging. And after hours and hours of debugging, you notice that you just forgot to set one reference to something. I might do this. I might not. Is it using the handle order? It should. It should. See, our enemy 3. Our health component script does have a reference to canvas changing stuff, score manager. So we have set, see, we have set the reference to the score manager on the canvas changing stuff. That still exists. It's still there. And it's the very same health component that's on the other. It's the very same component that's attached to all the others. So yeah, it's calling our score manager, add score, and this one fails. This one tells us, nope, we're gone already. That is weird. That is something that I would have cut out in the YouTube video and just pretended everything worked as I had planned it. So if you're not telling anyone this happened, I won't tell anyone this happened. Deal? Yeah, actually, I really don't understand. Something's missing. I have no idea what. Maybe we need to set. No, this thing doesn't even have the health component. It's weird. It's weird. Yeah, well, this doesn't work. I'm not gonna be debugging this yet because we still want to look at one other thing. But basically it works. Ignoring the big enemy that is giving us issues that we would need to debug. It must be something obvious. Definitely, I'm pretty sure it's something obvious. It's something so obvious that we just don't see it. But see, the other two enemies, for whatever reason, the other two work. They yield us 100 points each. Oh, no. Wait a second. Ha. No. Yes. It's some... I think I know. I think I just figured. And this is... I was just talking about this. This is oh crap. Yeah. This is when you but this is actually, if it really is what I think it is, then this is cool because then I can show you what I just said before, like when you instantiate the prefab and it yada yada blah blah blah. Because our enemy has the health component that wants access to the score manager. But our projectiles do as well, I think. Oh, yeah. And even our player, even our player object wants a reference in case we crash the player into an enemy, because we can do this. Because if we destroy our player, we could like say, okay, you got 50 points taken away. You got minus 50 points when you destroy your ship. You get points taken away again. But our player also needs access to the score manager in case it gets damage dealt. But that was not what caused the null pointer references, because our player object didn't get damage dealt. And also it's very easy to get the reference in here. The null pointer references are coming from our player projectile. Because we are spawning the player projectile hits the enemy. But also the enemy hits the player projectile. So the player projectile, so there's two things we can do, and we're actually gonna be doing the one where I can show you something else. One thing we can do, or actually even should do, we can check if, and this is error handling, and this is something you usually should do. We can check if our score manager is not null. Hey, Cyborg Wolf! Greetings go out to you, my friend. Hi. So the first thing we should do is to check if we actually have a valid reference in our score manager. And we can even shorten this a bit. We can even omit the not equals null, but we're not going to be doing this for readability's sake. So we check if it's not null, and only if it's not null, we call the add score. This doesn't give us the null pointer reference, but I still want to show you guys that we actually fixed. I mean, this is only suppressing the symptom. This is only avoiding the null pointer exception, which is already a good thing. But now we don't know. If I now run the game, I don't know that something's wrong. I can shoot this enemy, and well, I'm still getting the null pointer references, which is funny. Did I save? No, I didn't save. Great. Ha! I forgot to save. Yeah, this is classic. See, and now it takes ages for Unity to recompile. So now when I run it and I demaximize this and I shoot at the huge enemy, I'm not getting any null pointer exceptions anymore. Yay! But still the enemy just doesn't go away. Which is weird, because eventually I should have caused some damage, but this is the timing problem. Remember when we added this is a timing problem. Because the enemy destroys the projectile before the projectile can actually deal damage to the enemy. So yeah. This is the reason why this thing doesn't go away. So we might just set the damage down to something lower. But we don't know something's wrong. So what we totally should do also, because this will show us if we actually solve the problem, we're gonna do a debug log warning telling us, hey, we're missing, and also make this proper. So we are missing the reference to the TMP. No, to the score manager. Score manager. Like so. All right. Glad you enjoyed it so far, and well, then have fun watching the rest on YouTube. Thanks for sticking with me for as long as you could. And the Game Theorist, have a nice day. I hope you have to go to something nice, like, I don't know, watching Netflix with a friend or something. Have a good day, have a good weekend, and see you around. Bye. So, we're missing the reference for the score manager. So, now we at least handle the error properly. if I run this again, instead of the ugly null pointer exceptions, we should now get proper warnings like, hey, no, see, here it is. And it tells us, hey, we're missing the reference to the score manager, which we are. The problem is it's missing on the projectile. It's missing on the player projectile that we are spawning from our player object. And unlike with the other ones, like with the enemy or the player object, I could just drag on the canvas changing stuff object. I could just drag this into my score manager field, and it automatically grabbed the component I actually want to have the reference to from this object. Everything was fine. I can't do this with the prefab. I cannot drag a reference to something that's instantiated in the scene into a field of my prefab. Unfortunately, this doesn't work because the prefab, it doesn't exist yet. It's just your blueprint for how your game objects are put into the scene once you instantiate or spawn your prefab. So what we need to do is first to undo this weird move here. So what we need is we need a way to have the player projectile, the health component of the player projectile also know the reference to the score manager. One thing we could do is, again, we could resort to get component. We could check if score manager is null, and if it is, we do find game object, get component, and all that costly stuff. But that's something we do not want. So what we do instead is we make another method down here. This is our health component, right? Okay. I'll make a public method, and we just call this set score manager reference. And then we expect something of type score manager, and we call this score manager, and then we create a private field up here. This is a private field of the type score manager, and of course we just call this underscore score. No, we don't. We just put it. Crap. We already have a private field for the score manager. We just okay, then we call this score manager reference. So we can say here our score manager field that we have defined up there on the top of our class. We set this to the score manager reference we've just been passed, and everything is cool. So what we just did is we added a method so that from the outside this can be set. We're catching it if it's not set. If we don't have a proper reference, we're catching this. And we're not crashing. We're just giving ourselves a proper warning. But we now also have a way to someone from the outside who already knows this reference can now and I keep moving stuff, can now set this reference. And this is exactly what we're going to be doing when we go into our movement component. That's basically our player controller. See, we have this is where we instantiate our player projectile. This is where we instantiate our player projectile. And what we have here already is a reference to the game object, to our prefab, to the top level game object that we just spawned in the world. And we actually do have, I'm not sure if there's a nicer way, but we actually do have to do one get component here, because once we've spawned our projectile, again, in spawn projectile, we have the reference to the game object. So we can get the component, we can get the, what's it? Health component was it, right? Yeah. we can get the health component of the projectile we just spawned, and then call this set score manager reference, because we do have one in our own. Oh wait, this is the movement component. We need another reference. This is referencing hell. Because we don't have a reference to our own score manager yet. But we can get this. So, but it's hidden. Yeah, this is referencing hell. But let's do this. So instead of just set score manager reference, we also make a get score manager reference. And yes, we could use C# getters and setters for this. I'm just not doing it now because I don't know. I'm just not doing it. But we could absolutely just use C# getters and setters for this. But for whatever reason, I'm just doing custom methods. But yeah, we could also just for this score manager, we could just use a getter and setter up here. Maybe we should just do that. You know what? Let's do that. Let's scrap that one. And let's create a public score manager reference. And that has a get, which just returns the score manager without underscore because it's serialized. And it also has a set, which sets the score manager to whatever has been passed to it. So this is for those who are not familiar. Again, check the docs, or ask if you want an in-depth explanation here in the course of these tutorials. Just let me know. More than happy to do them. But C# is one of the few languages, and it's the only one known to me. I'm not sure if there's other ones. It's the only one known to me that has an inbuilt mechanic for getters and setters. What are getters and setters? You see our fields, they are always private. And they are always private. Well, what's clinging? Okay. And they are always private. So sometimes you do want to access them from the outside. Be it setting them, getting them, or reading them, or both. So what I just did down here was I made public methods, one to set this value, to set this field, and the other one to read it out and return it. And those are basically called getters and setters because all they do is they set this value from the outside, or the outside can read, i.e. get this value. You can totally do this in your own methods, like I just started doing, but C# has an inbuilt mechanic for this, and this is basically how they work. You define a public of the same type, of course, because I mean this is what you want to return. You give it some name, and then you do these curly brackets like you do with a method, but you're not. You see that there's no brackets here. There's no round brackets here. This is the difference. So then you start the curly brackets because there's a block of code coming. And actually, let me reformat this so it's a bit more clear and readable what's actually happening here. And inside this curly bracket block, you have a get and a set. And these, again, curly brackets, because you know. And then you do whatever code you need to return the value. In this very simple case, it's just returning the value. or for the set, you do whatever you need to update, to set this field, to set this value. In this case, it's really just setting it. But you can do other stuff with it. You can validate this. You can do calculations with it. You can do this is just a normal method that in the end sets this value, or maybe doesn't, or maybe just stuff with it. Again, if you want a more in-depth tour of getters and setters and stuff that comes with it, just let me know. We can do this, or just check the official Microsoft C# documentation. That is quite good on this. Gotta give them that. The documentation on C# itself is really, really good. So what we can do now is we want to have another serialized feed here, because what we need is, this is our movement component, basically our player controller. This is the thing that we use to move around our player object and to fire our projectiles. And what we need, no, we can have this more easy. We can actually have this more easy. All we need is a reference to our score manager. So okay, we can just drag it in here. We can give our movement component reference to the score manager as well. No problem. There's no harm. Wait, I need to tame my cable here again, and eventually come up with an idea how to permanently do this. So we make a serialized field score manager. I'll just call this score manager because we're so full of fantasy. And then what we can do is, we didn't call this set score manager, we called this score manager reference, and we can set this to our own score manager reference. So what we're doing here is, we'll be giving our movement component, that's basically our player controller, a reference to our score manager as well. And yes, this is supposed to be lowercase s. Thank you. See, good IDE, never lets you alone. So we're giving our movement component, our player movement component, a reference to our score manager as well. And what we're doing then is, because when we spawn our projectile, the projectile needs to have the reference to the score manager, but we can't set it on the prefab because it's something that's living already in the scene, and it just doesn't work that way. So what we're doing is, once we've instantiated our projectile and we set the position, all the stuff we did in the past, we're also grabbing the health component from the projectile we just spawned, and then we are telling it, hey, look, I have a reference to the score manager for you. Remember this. And so our health component doesn't have to do find object, find component, yada, yada, yada itself. And it just, well, should work. And we shouldn't get any more warnings that we're missing our components. So let's get back into here. So first, on our main player cube, our movement component now also wants the reference to the score manager. That's easy. Just drag that in there. Worked perfectly. Yeah, and that's it. Save. Run. And now let's see. If we're still missing the component, we're still getting our warnings. We're handling it gracefully. We're not getting null pointer exceptions anymore. But remember, we did get our warning. So if I shoot now at the big guy up here, yeah, it's still pretty hard to actually destroy him, but we're also not getting any warnings anymore, because now, and we, wait a minute, let me shoot one down here so it stays a while. See, the player projectile has a working reference to our score manager. Here it is. Here it tells us this. This is the thing that happened. Let's comment this line out again. So this is when we should get the warning again. Like, hey, we're missing that thing there. So let me shoot a few of those. And let's check this little one. See? The score, I'm not sure if you can see this well enough in the stream, but see, we are getting the warnings again. We are getting those warnings again a lot, and also if we check the player projectile that had been spawned, it's missing the score manager reference. See, score manager, none. So let's bring this line back in. And once it's done compiling, let's go back into Unity and start the thing. Clear all the errors. Wonderful. So, shoot a few projectiles. And first of all, let's take a look at one and see now Score Manager is set to the object canvas changing stuff. And of that, it's the Score Manager component and everything works. We're not getting any errors. We still do have a tough time destroying this enemy, but that's the timing issue that I've explained a few times already, the last few times. But you can see the projectiles, they don't clip through it anymore. They are properly destroyed. Well, they are basically the projectiles are destroyed by the enemy before the projectiles can actually hurt the enemy. So it's just fighting back really tough. It's just. Or maybe, I don't know, did we give it too much health points? 200, huh? Should be okay, huh? But anyways, the smaller ones work. We can destroy them. And the score gets added eventually. Yeah, see? And we got the 100 points. So now, before we finally come to the end of today's session, there's one more thing I just want to show you. Just to show you how it works and that it exists. We just create another pretty boring, pretty useless button. We create another UI element button, again, Text Mesh Pro button. And we name this, there's the text element, and we just tell this, gimme points. So, because this button is there to just give us more points. It doesn't really have a point. It's just because I want to show you how buttons work. Because buttons are a bit special. Because, okay, this was just the text. I didn't want to just move the text. I wanted to move the whole button. The whole button there. Because with buttons, you know, you want some functionality. You want to attach a method of your code. You want to call something when the button is pressed. I mean, just having a button there is easy enough. Let's make this. Can I scale this? Yeah, let's make this nice and buttony. Wonderful. Yep. Cool. So, it's nice to have a button there that we can press, but right now nothing happens. See, when I run the game, there's a button. I can push it, and you can even see it's getting pushed. It's getting pressed, but it doesn't do anything. So, what good is a button that doesn't do anything? So, the last thing I want to show you is how to make a button actually do something. And that is super easy. We click on the button. And somewhere, where is it? I need to, oh, yeah, right here. And here's the button component. You can already see here's the component button. You can change a lot of stuff. You can change the colors, the highlight color, push button color, active color, fade duration, whatever. You can change a lot of things to really make this button look like however you want it. You can even give it a custom image. to really make your buttons shiny and look how you want them. But the important thing is, you see, and let me grab the magnification again. You can see down here, here's the button component. I just selected this button and we have a button component, of course, because that's what's making this object into a button. Maybe we should call it Benjamin. Or if I call my privates Ryan, we can call the button Benjamin. No? No takers? Okay. So we have the button component, and down here we have this onClick. List is empty, and this is exactly what we're looking for. This is exactly what we want, because we want the button to do something when we click on it. And you can have the button do as many things as you want when you click on it. All you have to do is to click on this little plus icon here. Because when you do this, there's another entry in this onClick list. And you can also choose if this button should be active and doing something. Runtime only means when your game is running. Editor and runtime means when the game is running, or like right now when it's not running, when the editor editing things, the button still works and does cool stuff, whatever you give it to do. Or off, which means not at all. Which is basically the same as deleting this, but maybe you want to just disable it temporarily and re-enable it later on, so you don't have to delete it, can just set it to off. So we have one line where we already told the button when it's supposed to execute whatever we put into this line. It's currently runtime only, wonderful. But currently it's doing nothing. There's no object, none, no reference, and no function. And what we can do now, super easy. You can drag any object you have in your scene, or maybe even, you can even drag plain scripts from here that are not instantiated yet. Seems like you can just drag those onto there. I'm not sure how well that works. But we need the instance of our score manager. And remember, we put our score manager instance onto the canvas changing stuff. So there's our score manager that actually keeps track of our score, yada, 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 yada. So all we have to do is, if we go back to the button, we just drag our canvas changing stuff, because the canvas changing stuff has the component on it of which we want to call a method. Now, that's a complicated sentence, but it makes sense. So we just drag the canvas changing stuff object here into this object reference field and drop it. And now we have a reference to our canvas changing thingy in here. And now, if we click on this no function, where currently it says no function because currently there's nothing that's been called. When you click on it, you get a list of every component that's attached to the object you just dragged in there. So there's also our score manager. And from the score manager, we would like to call the add score method. Interestingly, it can call private methods. Can it? No, wait, I take that back. No, I take that back. We made this public. Of course, it's public. Screw it. My brain's already in late evening mode. So you have a list of every component that's attached to the object you dragged in here, and then if you go onto one of these components, you have all the methods that are available for you to call, and we want to call add score. Add score takes a parameter, which is how many score. So we say 10. And that's it. Now our button does something. When I click the button from the canvas changing stuff object, which is this one, and from this object, from our score manager component that's attached onto this object, we're calling the add score. So long story short, you can tell a button from which object, which component, which method you want to call. So if you have anything you want to call from your button, have it in a component, have it a public method of a component, slap it onto a game object, drag the reference in here, select your component, select your method, give it all the parameters it wants to have passed, and that's it. This should already work. So if we start this, now I move my player down here. I'm not hitting any enemies, but I'm hitting the gimme points button. See? And every time I do this, my points go up by 10 because I told it to every time when I hit the button, I want to have 10 points. So let's make this a nice 250. So when I destroy this little enemy, eventually, once we manage to see, that yielded us 100 points. Now we're at 350. Make this an even 400. Let me destroy this one as well. And I got a blank, nice 500 points there because that enemy up there, I don't know. Oh yeah, and I think we set the player object when that gets destroyed to -50. So when I slam into the huge enemy, it removes 50 points because we said, yeah, when the player object is destroyed, you get -50 points because you're stupid. You need to be, I don't know, suffer or something. So we're going to be taking points away from you again. Yeah, and this was the last thing. Buttons, how easy they are to use. Simple buttons, of course, it gets way more complicated when you want to have really, really nice and shiny buttons that react to things, that react on hover overs and do things and are sparkly and play music and stuff. But this is basically then how buttons work. You just create a new button, drag an object into the on-click reference, select a component of which you want to call a method, then you just select a method, and when you hit the button, that method is being called. And that's it. Yeah, this is it. Let me restart this because everything's so empty and even the player object being gone looks so sad. So let's fire at the huge enemy a bit, just because we can, but it fights back vigorously. So my projectiles get destroyed before they manage to do any damage to the enemy. So yeah, this was a very, very brief introduction into how UI in Unity works. Of course, there's a lot more things to do. There's a lot more things to know. And maybe we're going to be revisiting UI on a later date. Let's see. I'm currently collecting ideas for more because the next time we see us here will always be the final time for this series. Then we are coming to an end again. So next time is a bit wrap up and see what we've done and take a look at everything we've done and maybe answer some more questions if you have. And yeah, but I'm already collecting more ideas for more sessions that I want to do with you guys. So if you have any topic you want to see covered, if you have a question that you want to be answered and covered here, doing this tutorial series, if you have a topic where you say, hey, can you do a few sessions on this topic because I would like to see something about this, let me know. Either post it here in the chat, come onto the Devcom Discord and post it there, or tweet at me directly at Twitter, whatever, or send a homing pigeon or something, or smoke signals, whatever that can reach me to tell me what you want to see covered here. Let me know, and I will see what we can do about this. And with this being said, thanks a lot for being here with me today with a brief look at Unity UI, at how to display a score and how to make a button actually do something. And yeah, see you next time. See you around. Have a wonderful time. And Yeah. Bye. See ya. Take care.